Hello, and welcome to an overview of the STM Permissions Guidelines. This video provides guidance on how the STM guidelines apply to reuse of content. You, your organization, and everyone involved in the publishing process will benefit from understanding what the guidelines allow and what limits apply. So, what are the STM Permissions Guidelines? The Science Technical Medical, or STM Permissions Guidelines, is a voluntary and reciprocal agreement between participating signatory publishers to reuse limited amounts of material from each other's published works without a fee. The guidelines simplify permissions processing for signatory publishers, helping to make research more accessible while also encouraging original research. The guidelines can maximize efficiency during the publishing process, so it is imperative that all parties involved, including book and journal authors, editors, publishers, permission specialists, rights teams, and content creators, understand the STM Permissions Guidelines. There are currently over 80 signatory publishers worldwide participating in the guidelines. Please follow the link at the end of the video to check the full list of signatory publishers and to see which publishers require pre-notification, listed as notification required, and which do not, listed as notification not required automatic process. And always remember to add the credit line required by the publisher. The guidelines apply to reuse cases where new works published by an STM Permissions Guidelines signatory consist of at least 70% new content and not more than 30% of reproduced content. The guidelines give you permission to reuse limited amounts of STM signatory content free of charge in new and future editions of work, as well as in translations of new and future editions of work. However, these permissions apply only to STM Permissions Guidelines signatories. The guidelines do not permit you to reuse figures on book covers, for promotional purposes, or for reuse in a database or digital platform which do not form part of the primary work as it was originally published. Additionally, the content requested from the STM Permissions Guidelines cannot be sub-licensed. It is very important to note that, in most cases, permission must still be requested, and publishers can potentially deny the permission even if your request is within the limits of the STM guidelines. Special circumstances do apply, however. If the reused content is transferred to a new rights holder due to an acquisition or divestment, the new rights holders do not need to seek new rights. A transfer of rights does not terminate permission previously granted. When requesting material for use in your journal article, the following limits apply: up to 3 figures from a single STM signatory publisher, up to 400 words from a single article or book chapter, and up to 800 words from an entire book or journal issue. When requesting material for use in your book chapter, the following limits apply: up to 3 figures from a single STM signatory publisher, up to 400 words from a single article or book chapter, and up to 800 words from an entire book or journal issue. To prevent excessive reuse, the STM Permissions Guidelines limit how much material you can reuse from a single source in books as a whole. For complete books, you may only reuse up to 30 figures from a single STM signatory publisher across all chapters. If you're reusing content from a full book or journal issue, the limit is 800 words and 5 figures, or 6 figures from an annual journal volume. And the limit from a single chapter or article within a full book or journal issue is less than or equal to 3 figures and up to 400 words. If these limits are exceeded, permission must be requested directly from the publisher and/or rights holder, and fees may apply. Supplementary content and adapted variations of the primary work are not covered by these guidelines. Below are some examples. Supplementary content may include study guides, solution manuals, interactive supplements, online lectures, slide decks, LMS content, or an image gallery. Adapted variations may include regional editions, custom editions, abridgments, and enhanced works. Here are a few other considerations to keep in mind. When applying for permissions, carefully check the rights ownership of the material you wish to reuse. The listed owner of copyright may no longer be the actual current rights holder. If the current rights holder is not an STM signatory publisher, then the guidelines do not apply, and you must contact the current rights holder to request permission. If the author is the rights holder of the content you wish to reuse, you must obtain permission directly from the author, as the STM guidelines do not apply. Open access also creates some unique factors to consider. While republishing non-open access content in an open access publication is permitted under the STM permissions guidelines, there are some rules. First, if the material you wish to reuse is open access content, you must follow the specific terms and conditions attached to the OA license it's published under. For instance, in the case of a CC-BY-NC or more restrictive license, you must always request permissions from the rights holder. In the case of a CC-BY license, however, no permission is requested. And always remember to include attribution. Second, you must contact the rights holder to request permission if the material you wish to reuse is not open access, but the new work will be published under an open access license. If such permission is obtained, the reused material must be published with a statement explaining that it is protected by copyright and excluded from the open access license of the publication as a whole. Some final notes. No additional permissions are required for chapter resales or reuse in an ebook collection. Further, no additional permission is required from the author or artist of the content unless they are the rights holder. And when material is published electronically, a link to the original work on the publisher's website should be included in the citation or credit line. In closing, permissions are granted free of charge to participating publishers within the limits described. The STM permissions guidelines do not apply to any works published by non-signatory publishers. Please contact those publishers directly for permissions requests. And remember, these are voluntary and reciprocal guidelines, and every publisher's participation may differ. You should always check to ensure you have obtained the permission you need. Thanks for watching. For a full list of signatories to the STM permissions guidelines, their notification requirements, and more information about reusing content, follow the link displayed after the video.